Well, hello class, and here we are going into the last week of March, and we're already on section 8, which is going to be on decision making. So let's talk a little bit about decision making and what that entails. Decision making, this particular section is going to take in the following objectives. And those objectives essentially are going to be to describe programmed and non-programmed decision making. There's decision making that we do all the time. That's programmed decision making. But non-programmed decision making is, what happens when we run into a crisis and we need to figure out what to do. Leaders need to be on top of all of this stuff. They have to know when to follow policy and procedure, and then also when they need to kind of think out of the box a little bit, because the way they're used to doing things isn't the way a particular situation needs to be addressed. Obviously, the further you are up in the hierarchy of the organization, the more autonomy you have to work with the non-programmed decisions. The second objective is going to be to recognize the 6-step process of rational decision making. There is a process that we go through, and what is that process? We'll be discussing that. And the third is going to be to describe the behavioral, economic-based decision making approach. And the rationale behind that is to overcome biases and errors. Think clearly and not be partial or stereotyping. And a lot of this has to do with politics too in an organization. How do you deal with that type of thing? Next objective is to identify organizational psychological based approach to decision making. Sometimes when you make decisions, you have to use a lot of psychology. And what we refer to as organizational psychology is knowing the nuts and bolts of how communication flows in the organization. And is it autocratic? Does it just flow from the top down? Does it also flow from the bottom up and laterally? How does one department affect another? Are we working as separate companies within one company? These are the types of things we have to deal with. The next objective, Objective 5, has to do with discussing the importance of the 5 activities in what we refer to as natural decision making. And finally, objective number 6 would be to apply concepts of decision making to organizations as a whole. There's there's core values in an organization. Well, what are the concepts of decision making that have to do with how one decision you may make in a department affects the company as a whole? One department affects other departments, maybe budgetary wise or production wise or whatever they do in those separate departments. So there's a lot involved with decision making, and decision making obviously has a lot to do with power and control. So we're going to have to go through all of those steps in this chapter, and hopefully some of the YouTube videos that we see in conjunction with the lecture in class and the case studies are going to help us through this. So on Monday, it's going to be, tomorrow being the 27th of March. I'm actually recording this right now for you on my webcam, Sunday, day before. We're going to use a lot of theory. We're going to go through a lot of theory about decision making, a lot of Socratic discussion and interaction. On Wednesday, we're going to do a couple of case studies from your book on decision making, and I will post all of that, which ones are going to cover in this particular week's module. So I'll break it down into Monday and Wednesday, and I'll see you all tomorrow at 11:30 sharp.